Howdy folks. So today is a bad day. My main file server, Tesla, crashed due to a long-standing ZFS bug that I created by upgrading the pool, or the file system rather, from version 3 to version 5 long time ago. And this isn't the first time this has happened, but under heavy load it's got a possibility of creating a kernel panic. And of course this happened at obviously the worst possible time. The server locked up, went into kernel panic, all my VMs crashed, my desktop crashed, everything crashed. So, of course, the only thing to do is to kill the server. You can't even shut it down because of the kernel panic, it just hangs. So I do that, and I boot it back up, and it gets so far through the boot to the point where it loads the Solaris porting layer and the ZFS module, remounts the root file system, and it's just hanging here. And it's been doing this for about 10 minutes now, and it's still sitting here, and of course it doesn't do anything. Now, the thing you'll notice is that the hard disk activity light is blinking and the disks are doing things. So my hope is that what it's doing right now is going through the ZFS intent log and it's replaying all of the transactions that were not committed to disk, to make sure that the file system stays correct, basically. Now, I don't know how long this is supposed to take. Now, my ZFS intent log is only 4 gigabytes in size, so this can't really take that long. So the longer this progresses, the more and more worried I'm becoming, because at this point I basically can't boot the server, which is really bad. Now, not only that, but I just applied some tuning parameters, which I haven't tested yet. I was going to reboot later tonight to make sure that they all worked correctly. So that's also not good, because I have untested parameters that are obviously being applied to the pool. So if this doesn't do anything in about half an hour, I'm going to go into serious panic mode, because this pretty much stops my life, basically. So my hope is that ZFS can recover from this, and if it doesn't, I am really fucked. So I booted into a recovery shell, and I was able to load the SPL and ZFS kernel modules manually, and I was able to run an import. And as you can see, my pool is still here and all the disks are detected and they're all online, no issues, but we still have this disk activity problem. Now, the reason for this is actually the mounting has failed. It cannot mount my main storage data set. If I actually just look, it's mounted in tank storage. It's empty, whereas all of my other data sets, for example, like for example my apt mirror, is present. So the file system in storage appears to be corrupted to the point where it cannot mount anymore. So I'm going to have to do some digging to see if I can figure out how to get this to work, because I can actually look in the process list and I can find the mount which is failing right here. So yeah, we have some file system corruption, and I may have to remove I'm not sure if this would be intent log or yeah, because I believe the intent log would have already been replayed in this case, so this could be bad. So I was able to set the faulty data set to be read-only, and remount the root file system as read-write, and I can see my files in the read-only file system. So absolute worst case scenario, I can copy the data out of the data set. Now this of course would be a laborious operation. I have about 15 terabytes in this data set, and I don't have anywhere else to put it. So I mean, this would be an expensive and day-long thing I don't have time for, but at least the data is readable. So now the issue is to figure out why I can't mount this read-write and see if I can repair the file system. So the pool is not damaged, the file system on top of it, the data set is. So I'm going to be Googling a little bit because this is something that's never happened to me before, and I really can't afford to fuck this up. So I've just resorted to running a scrub. I don't really know what else to do at this point. Unfortunately, I mean, look at the time. This is really not a good time for this to happen, and that scrub will take far longer than 15 hours, more like 25 hours. So, I mean, at this point, I hope it finds and repairs something, because, yeah, this has put me in an extremely bad situation. I'm not even quite sure what my other servers will do now that this is down. I know that they'll continue to retry to connect, but a bunch of services, all of my VMs are no longer operational. My database is no longer replicating. This really has far-reaching consequences, along with the fact that I have serious work to do, and it's all in that damaged pool. So, worst case scenario, I can hook up an external drive, copy the most relevant information out of it, but not only that, but I can't even boot up my workstation, because my workstation has a dependency on that data set. It will not boot without that data set. So this becomes quite serious. So this pretty much halts everything until I can figure out what's going on. And unfortunately, I mean, I'm hoping that because ZFS scans metadata first, that it will, hopefully this would have to be a metadata issue. So I'm hoping that it can do that first, but I don't know. I'll let this run for a few hours and see what happens. So it's just after 3 a.m. I have to speak quietly now because everyone else in my house is asleep and I don't want to wake anybody up. But I'm still running a scrub, and it's gone about almost 20% the way through, and it hasn't found any errors. So I'm not quite sure what this is going to do, but I might as well let it keep going. So while the scrub is ongoing, I've been coming up with a contingency plan for what will happen in the event that I cannot get the pool writable again. So the storage dataset, which is the one that's corrupted, ZFS tells me that there's 13.3 TB of data on it. Now, I believe ZFS uses TB, so that's what I'm going with. Now, what's an absolute godsend is that my file server from another city is here. I did a video on this. I'm not sure if it'll go up before or after this, but this is sort of like a co-location server of mine, and I brought it to my house just to basically rebuild it, redo all the storage, update the OS, all that stuff. So it has a ZFS pool on it, an 8 terabyte pool, and it's a multimedia server. That's its primary function, so it has a lot of multimedia on it, which it pulled from Tesla. And the beautiful part is I updated that media library no more than 2 days ago, so it's fully up to date. Now, Hubble has an 8 terabyte pool, as I said, and it has about 3.6 TB of data on it. So it doesn't have my complete media library, but it has a good portion of it, and it's fully up to date. So that data doesn't even need to be rescued. It's already safe on a fully redundant pool. So that means that, assuming that that data is safe, I have to recover almost 10 TB of data. Now, of course, we're going to assume that Hubble has about just over 4 TB of available space, given that it's an 8 terabyte pool, and the numbers probably won't add up, but that's because I'm assuming that it's not 100% utilization. Of course, these are not 1 TB disks, these are 1 terabyte disks, so they're not going to work out properly. But this I want to use for all of my most important data, because if I have to copy data off of Tesla, then I have to destroy the pool or the data set on Tesla and copy it back. So there will be a period of time where the data is not going to be redundant on Tesla. It's going to be only on this, this intermediary media. So Hubble is my best shot because it's fully redundant. It's got, it can tolerate silent bit errors. It can tolerate a disk failure, and my data will still be safe. It'll be just as safe as if it was on Tesla because it's exactly the same storage configuration. So of course my most important 4 terabytes is going to go there. But unfortunately that leaves, about 5.5 terabytes to rescue, and I cannot put it on fully redundant media. So I've gone through what I have. I have 1 terabyte disk just sitting there, so I can fill that up. Of course, all of these options are not going to be redundant, which means if during the, let's say, up to 24 hours, the data exists on that disk, that is the single and only copy. And of course, it will be using ZFS, but if there is a bit error that is encountered, bad sector, whatever, then it will be detectable because of ZFS, but it will not be correctable, and that file or files that are affected will be basically lost forever. So obviously I want to put my lower priority media on this. So I've got the 1 terabyte disk, and I have a 4 terabyte disk, which I actually pulled from Tesla a while back because it was giving me issues. Now I zeroed the disk, and it doesn't appear to be causing any more problems. It appears perfectly healthy. So that disk kind of scares me, but I do have this, and it has an old backup of a lot of data on it. And the thing is, I'm not sure if it's really a good idea to use these disks. These disks are all backups, and this is the thing. If it turns out that the data cannot be read off the pool, and I've deleted the backups, I've really screwed myself. Whereas, is it worth having an old backup, or is it worth trying to get the current data? That's really what I'm contemplating, and I do think that it's probably better to try and get the current data, especially because this is the lower priority stuff. And I also have 2 other 2 terabyte disks. Again, same thing. They've both failed in an array, but I've zeroed them, and the disks seem to be okay. And they have newer backups that were taken only a few weeks ago, but they're not complete backups. Most of these disks are, maybe like 10% full or something, so that data is not really that useful. It was designed to be a supplement to the other backup disks. I have a whole bunch of other backup disks that I don't want to touch. These are the ones I want to touch because they're really big, and they have really weird content on them. My actual backup stack is 7 1 terabyte disks, which I will not touch for this because that is my sort of absolute last resort. Now I've gone through a whole bunch of my super critical data, and it's only about 500 gigabytes, so I can definitely fit a lot of stuff into that, that safe, redundant 4 terabytes. And I've gone through and I found 8 terabytes of media that I don't necessarily need to keep. This is the lowest of the low priority data that I have. I can reacquire this data. It'll take a long time, but it is data that I can get again. So if we take that out of the equation, that's only 5.3 terabytes of data we have to save. We take out the data that's already saved, all that video and audio, that multimedia that's on Hubble. So it's only 2.7 terabytes. So that will fit on Hubble as well. So pretty much all of this stuff that's not really safe is just going to be for data that I can get again anyway. So even though I don't want to undertake this, and this would be, a day or two's worth of work, which I honestly can't afford at this point, but if it comes down to it, I feel safe doing this just by, sketching this out and seeing how this is going to work. So I just hope that scrub comes up with something and I can get it to mount. I've tried some ZDB commands, and they don't seem to help, so I'm not really sure what's going to go on now, but at least the scrub is working at quite a reasonable pace. I actually don't think this is going to take the 24 hours it normally does, because as I mentioned before, those untested ZFS tuning parameters, as it actually turns out, those are working really well, and the scrub is running literally 3 times faster than it has ever before. So hopefully this will finish, in the morning, and I can continue from there. I'm probably gonna... I don't want to go to sleep, but I mean, I'm not sure if I'll even be able to go to sleep, because this is really stressful, but I'm going to probably try and catch some sleep, because it's going to be a long day tomorrow, especially if I have to do some backups and recover from that. So it's almost 3:30 in the morning, and I was reading up on a bunch of issues on the ZFS on Linux GitHub issue tracker, and I thought I would try some things, because the scrub wasn't looking like it was going to actually do anything. I'd done a bunch of stuff with ZDB, and I'd read all sorts of inodes and stuff that if there was corruption on the pool that was preventing it from mounting like metadata and stuff, it would have been found very early in the scrub. So I canceled that. The first thing I did, which was really interesting, was I remounted the file system, the dataset, the storage dataset, as read-write using the standard, standard mount-o remount rw /tag/storage, and it completed immediately. And I wondered if this was even correct, because I'm not using ZFS to mount, I'm using the regular legacy mount. So I wrote, I just touched a file, and what do you know, that file exists. So I can write to the file system, which is really interesting. So what I want to do is reboot them, is basically export the pool properly, then import it again and see if it will mount automatically, and I'll try removing the read-only parameter on that dataset and see if I can get ZFS to remount it now. I'm not quite sure how I can do this, but I can't get it to mount normally. I also want to try disabling the xattr's parameter, because that apparently can cause problems. The shared attributes can cause problems when they get corrupted. I know I have that enabled, so I want to disable that and see if I can mount it after that, because you can do that temporarily with just a -o option on the ZFS mount command. So I'm going to try those things and see if I get anywhere. So I set the read-only parameter in the dataset to off, as it was before, and then I exported the whole pool, imported the pool, but didn't mount anything with the -n parameter, and I basically began a mount again with the no xattr option, as I mentioned before, and it's still doing exactly what it did before. And the thing is, it's not hanging. I mean, it does have disk activity. So I read in a thread that some people have had issues like this after a crash, and it can take literally hours for ZFS to import it in a read-write mode. So what I'm going to do is basically, as long as the hard drive activity light is flashing, I'm going to let this sit and see what it does. I mean, I don't really think I have much to lose. The only bad thing that could happen, I guess, is if it somehow corrupts the data that's on there, which I highly doubt it would do. That's really the only risk, is because this is now, it's trying to mount it in a right manner. If you actually look at top, you can see mount.zfs there, just sitting there. So I'm not entirely sure what it's doing. I should have probably added the -v parameter to give me maybe some verbose output. I've tried that before. It doesn't actually do anything, but I mean, it's waiting for something. But that would just be the disks. But yeah, I don't know, to be honest. I'm just gonna probably take a nap, and hopefully this thing's done by the time I wake up. So I literally just stepped out to use the washroom, and I came back, and it returned while I was away. So does that mean that it's actually mounted properly? Let's try... Let's touch something. It can write. Yep. Okay, so it is mounted correctly. Now, the real test will be if I can unmount it and then mount it and it mounts immediately. If it takes, a long time to mount each time, and also I want to see if I can mount it without that special flag. Let's actually try that right now. I've probably got this somewhere in one of my commands. There we go. So I can unmount it, and then I will mount it, but without the no X adder flag, and see if it returns in a reasonable amount of time. It does. Holy shit. It might be fixed. ZFS may have magically fixed itself. I'm starting to think that maybe ZFS could have actually fixed itself if I had just given it longer to recover. Now, when I originally tried to get it to mount, it took, I gave it a good 20 minutes, and it didn't do anything. So I had thought, the hard disk was making the drives were making a very repetitive noise, like it was almost stuck in a loop or something. So that's why I gave up on it and started doing all of my investigation. But it's very possible that ZFS was always right from the beginning. But anyway, I'm going to reboot this, get it out of recovery mode, and see if I can get it fully functional again. And then I'll find out how mad all of my other servers are for this thing being offline for several hours. Yeah, I want to get this done, and hopefully I can go to sleep before 4:30 a.m. Well, aside from the fact that my camera can't focus, Tesla booted normally. Perfectly normally. No longer in recovery anymore. Well, there we are. Tesla is up. The pool is healthy. All the network interfaces are up. And it doesn't report any issues. All the datasets are mounted. And now I have to go figure out how screwed MariaDB is, because the relay log is probably backed up to the point where it's overflowed on my primary database server. But yeah, I'm going to start at my workstation, connect to this over InfiniBand, and I will basically start the recovery process. I will probably re-scrub the pool, even though I canceled it and I just finished a scrub yesterday. I'm going to probably re-scrub it, first of all knowing that it doesn't take nearly as long as it used to, but also I really want to be extra sure that everything is okay on this pool. I know the files that were being modified when it crashed, so I'm going to probably just delete those straight up, because they're not needed anyway. They were just temporary files. So if there's any corruption in the pool, it's going to be in that area, and I know exactly where they are, so I can delete those. And hopefully, it looks like everything's going to be back to normal. So I gotta say, once again, I know that this bug was caused by ZFS, but I don't think that any other file system encountering an issue like this would have been able to recover like this, even though this took a long time, and it was very inconvenient. I gotta say that probably most of what went wrong was my fault, me just not understanding what was going on, and this probably could have been a lot less of an issue had I known what was going on. So it's just after 4:15 a.m. and the database did become unsynced, and I had to skip a hell of a lot of errors to get it back in sync. This is really odd. The seconds behind master is, I mean, if you actually do the math, that's far longer than like 4 or 5 hours, so I'm not quite sure what's going on, because this was working properly, at least I think it was working properly beforehand, so I'm not sure what's going on. But anyway, the disk is pretty much solidly lit. It's clearing this error, but it'll probably take another 15 minutes for it to catch up, and I'll just reboot the machine and everything to make sure it's all good and fine. So I was looking back at the, this is the kernel log from Tesla, as you can see here. This is actually what failed right here. This is where the kernel panic starts. So obviously the magic parameter failed some sort of check, and it panicked, and it starts to dump after that. And obviously a bunch of the kernel worker threads get blocked, and it just hung the whole machine, and I had nothing, like really no choice but to completely, not really pull the plug, but reset the machine. I'm actually kind of surprised. I mean, you look at how long this log goes on for. It was actually several minutes before I actually realized anything was wrong. I think I was literally in a just in a file browser, and I clicked to go into a folder, and it didn't respond, and it was then that I realized there was something wrong. But yeah, it was obviously hung for, well, I mean, what is that? That's 50, and where does this start? 43, so it was hung for 7 minutes before I even realized. Wow. I was reading a PDF, so it doesn't require I/O for that. So yeah, anyway, the system is pretty much fully operational now. My VMs all crashed, but they've all seemed to have recovered. They just use ext4, so the journaling pretty much just deletes all the orphaned inodes, and it's all good. So yeah, that was my adventure, and hopefully you got some, I don't know, got something out of that. I don't really know if you learned anything, but I sure did. So I guess the moral of the story is if ZFS looks like it's doing something, probably just let it do its thing, no matter how long it takes. Because I think if I had known that before all of this, it would have been over in, I don't know, half an hour maybe. So anyway, I am going to wait for this replication to finish, and hopefully catch a couple hours of sleep before everyone else in my house wakes me up. So I just want to tack this on the end of the video. It's the next morning, or I guess sort of the next afternoon. It's 2 o'clock. The scrub that I started last night is still going. This is just to verify everything. And this is what's really interesting. I made a video just a little bit back, I think it actually might be the last video, about me trying to replace one of the HBAs in Tesla to try and improve the scrub performance. And I ended up adding another HBA. I didn't replace it, I added another 2-port one, so I've split the load up, so there shouldn't be a bottleneck anymore. And I saw during the scrub that I did in recovery mode, I was achieving the 650 megabytes a second that I knew the hardware was capable of, so I was really happy. I thought that was the tuning parameters. But if you look at it now, the scrub performance is exactly the same. It's somewhere between 200 to 300 megs a second with the system fully operational. So I'm kind of intrigued as to what's going on here. So I think there's something that is probably reducing the number of IOPS that it can use to do a scrub. And it's some sort of service. I'm thinking maybe MariaDB or something like that is doing some weird stuff with I/O buffers. Because if you actually look at the system load, now of course the system was pretty much running in read only mode at this point, so Monitrix wasn't running, but you can see that the scrub should have peaked the system load really high when it was running at that kind of speed, but you see we're not achieving that speed now. So I'm not quite sure what's causing this. Now, I can't investigate this now. I've got enough on my plate as it is. The parameters are still applied. I just checked, and yeah, my custom parameters are all still there. So I think after the holidays, I'm going to probably bring Tesla down and probably start a scrub, disable services one by one, and we'll see which one is causing this weird, pretty much 60% reduction in scrub speed. But that'll be for another time, another video. I'm tired, I've got work to do. So just thought I'd mention that. Anyway, thanks for watching.